Hello everyone and welcome to the 4.0 or 4. We'll call it 4.6 because it's the patch that we're in just now. Immortal Juggernaut. We're taking a look at the tank spec today if this video ever records. I recorded the Vengeance one and then it decided didn't want to record it. So let's have a look at the Immortal discipline. I love that name. I love Immortal. It is the tank, of course. It is the big dick tanking spec of the Juggernaut. It's called Defense if you're a Guardian. So what have we got? We've got our Aegis Assault. Replaces our Sundering Assault. Increases our damage reduction by 3% for 20 seconds. It generates 6 rage and it does a very little amount of damage, okay, but it is quite useful because again it does give us damage reduction as well. Also puts a debuff on the target as well. It doesn't say where it is. It's unsteady. Doesn't say where it is. Increase armor rating. There was a debuff somewhere that it puts on the target. Geez, I don't remember where it is. It does put a debuff up. We'll try it. We'll walk up and try it. Oh yeah, no, it gives you a secondary buff. It just gives you extra shield absorption. There you go. Consuming power. I knew it did something else there. So there you go. You get damage reduction and consuming power. That's what it gives you. That's what it gives you. The debuffs are from Smash. Smash puts a targeting debuff up. Crushing Blow is the other one that gives you the debuff. There, so there you go. That was it there. There you go. Got mixed up there between those two. But there you go. So you've got your Retaliation as well. Your ability that's off the global cooldown. Suppressive Form is active. Retaliation is off the global cooldown, costs 1 less rage. It also gives us Blade Barricade. Retaliation raises a Blade Barricade, increasing your defense chance by 5% for 10 seconds. This spec is all about defense, okay? All about defense. The Blade Barricade is useful. It basically revolves around 2 barriers. You've got your Blade Barricade and your Sonic Barrier, okay? Force Scream activates a Sonic Barrier, which absorbs a moderate amount of damage, okay, and it lasts for 10 seconds. Very useful for things like spike damage. You can just throw out a Scream and get a little moderate absorb shield there. It's quite nice. Blade Barricade is more going to be... You want to keep this up as much as possible, okay? How you get Retaliation is if you successfully defend an attack, okay? Successfully defending against a melee or ranged attack. Okay, that's how you get it well in Suppressive Form. It cannot be parried, dodged. This cannot be parried, dodged, or anything like that. Okay, gives you your Blade Barricade. Very, very nice. You got your Bitch Slap here, which just slaps the target. Generates a high amount of threat. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage. It is used for threat, mostly. What else have we got? We have our Defensive Slashes, which is our new ability in 4.0. Dealing damage with Ravage increases your defense chance by 2%. It stacks up to 3 times and lasts for 6 seconds. So get 2% defense while we're using Ravage. Ravage does damage over 3 seconds. Each tick is, I think it's 1 tick every second for Ravage. So every time it ticks, you get a 6% defense stat. Sorry, 6% extra defense. You got your Invincible, which is your big defensive cooldown. Reduces all damage taken by 40% for 15 seconds. Very, very nice. Of course, you got the magnificent Saber Reflect. Okay, reflects all direct single target ranged force and tech attacks back to the attacker for 5 seconds. Okay, damage done by Reflect is capped though, and the cap raises with each new rank of the ability. But this, very, very nice. Generates a ton of threat. Okay, with the utility, I'm going to show you in a minute. Very, very good defensive and an offensive cooldown as well in there. You've also got Endure Pain, which again increases your maximum health by 30% for 20 seconds. This is your oh shit button, okay? When the effect ends, your health is lost. This is kind of the, every tank has the oh shit, don't die button. this is it for the Juggernaut, is Endure Pain. The other ability that you've got is Enraged Defense, okay? It gives you 12 charges of Enraged Defense. Whenever you take damage, it heals you. Okay, so it's good if you're taking a lot of periodic damage as well. You also have Mad Dash as a defensive ability. It gives you 100% defense chance while you're using it, so don't underestimate its defensive cooldown potential. You also have Saber Ward, which increases your melee range, melee and range defense by 50% and absorbs 25% of the damage taken from force and tech attacks. Okay, so you get an extra 50% ranged and melee defense. Quite nice, Saber Ward, but generally Invincible is generally that little bit better. They both share the same cooldown, but bear in mind Invincible is all damage reduced by 40%, whereas this is only 25% against force and tech attacks. Against melee and range, though, you get 50% extra defense, so that is that is very, very nice. So let's get to the utilities. Payback is nice, reduces the cooldown of Unleash. If you're getting stunned, if you're not getting stunned, it's going to be kind of useless. It gives you 10% of your maximum health back. Unleash is your breakout of stun. So if you're getting stunned and you're using your breakout of stun, Unleash is the way to go. Path Carver, if we're doing AoE. Sweeping Slash deals 25% more damage. Okay, it's very, very nice, Sweeping Slash. For AoE, bear in mind that they benefit from our Quake. Okay, Smash and Sweeping Slash cause the target to become unsteady. Unsteady targets have the ranged accuracy decreased by 5%, and damage dealt by Force Scream is a different thing. But yeah, unsteady targets, 5% less damage, so it is useful to do. You're going to be using this for AoE. Unstoppable Force Charge grants Unstoppable, gives us immunity to movement impairing effects and effects that push or pull you around for 4 seconds. Useful on some fights where we're getting pushed around. Fights like Foreman Rock Crusher in KP can be useful there because he does knock you back, so you get that immunity for 4 seconds, which is quite nice after you use Force Charge. So it can be useful there. You also have Warmonger. I'm gonna sneeze here. This is gonna be good. Getting attack reduces the active cooldown of Force Charge by 1 second. This effect cannot occur every 1.5 seconds. Useful for things where you need to tank swap, but bosses are in a fixed position. I'm thinking the tanks, Firebrand, Kaleo and Stormcaller. Those two, yeah, the tanks there where you need to swap, basically, and the bosses are in a fixed position. Think of it. I mean, not a lot of people do tank swaps anymore on the Sword Squadron as well. So those kind of fights, again, just reduce the cooldown of Force Charge. It's pretty nice because if you're a tank, you're going to be getting attacked. So it's useful for that, where you have to tank swap. Unyielding, we generate 4 rage whenever we're stunned, immobilized, put to sleep, or knocked around. Again, if we don't really struggle for rage in this spec as a tank anymore, but you know, it can be useful. You know, if you're struggling for rage. Deadly Reprisal is quite nice. Taking non-periodic area of effect damage generates 1 rage. Okay, we're going to be taking damage. Okay, so getting free rage here is quite useful. Overwhelm, nah, not really. We can't immobilize bosses really with Ravage. Although we don't want things running away from us while we're ravaging. Generally they won't be because we're a tank. So more of a PvP thing. Unshackling Rage. Activating Enrage purges movement impairing effects and increases your movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. This is quite useful, okay? It can be pretty useful when you activate Enrage. You know, the extra movement speed helps you get into position better. It's quite nice. And of course, bosses with movement impairing effects. It will purge those movement impairing effects. Okay, so that's pretty useful if we're getting fights with movement impairing effects. Underlurker HM is a good example of that. We want to be, you know, getting behind that rock. We don't want to be getting hit by the Rage Storm. So again, having things like Unshackling Rage is pretty nice. Your Enrage is a 45-second cooldown. So, you know, you can use it every 45 seconds. It's similar to Hold the Line for a commando, really. But it doesn't give you immunity from movement impairing effects while you're under the effect of it. Okay, so that's the only difference between that and Hold the Line. It's a little mini Hold the Line for us. Pooled Hatred, when your movement is impaired, you gain 10% damage bonus to your next ability that consumes rage. Nah, not really for a tank, to be honest. There's better talents here to take. Oppressor, Force Charge, Crushing Blow, Obliterate, Intercede, and Mad Dash. Oppressor is mentioned next. Chilling Scream, Consume No Rage. Not really in PvE. We're not really going to take that. Crushing Fist and the Immortal Discipline Smash slows the targets by 60%. 10 seconds. Nah, it's kind of crappy, to be honest with you. There's not really a time when you're really going to want to slow a lot of targets in PvE. PvP, it can be useful, but not in PvE. Strangulate is a useful one, reducing the cooldown of Force Choke by 15 seconds. Again, Choke does generate a lot of threat here. You've got Force Grip. Okay, you've got Force Choke deals 100% more damage, generates 100% more threat, and activates instantly. What you can do is you can choke something and leave it. And you can see here it's still being choked. And we don't have to sit there and channel it. So, reducing the cooldown on choke, you know, it's quite useful. It is a good threat generator. If one ad spawns at range, you know, your choke has it has a 10-meter range on it. So, you know, you can generate a bit of threat on something at range, and you can just leave something being choked. Is pretty handy. It can also be used as an interrupt if your interrupt's on cooldown as well, Force Choke. So Strangulate is a useful ability in certain situations. Emboldening Scream, Chilling Scream increases your maximum movement speed, the maximum movement speed of all allies within 8 meters, excluding yourself, 50% for 8 seconds. Occasional usefulness this can get. Again, Underlurker HM, if you don't have a Marauder, you can go with that. It's only within 8 meters, so it might not get everybody, but it can be useful to hit your Chilling Scream. I don't have that on the bar because I don't really do PvP as the tank. So yeah, Chilling Scream can be useful. Seething Hatred is useful in flashpoints, not really in operations. When you exit combat, all of your rage generators are off cooldown. That's your Force Charge and Rage and Saber Throw come off cooldown when you exit combat. Useful if you're doing Trash Pool and then Trash Pool and then Trash Pool, but for operations, not really Seething Hatred. When you're questing, definitely take this. The only mandatory one I would say here is Sonic Wall. Okay. Threatening Scream protects all allies within range, excluding yourself. Grants Sonic Wall, which absorbs a moderate amount of damage. Think of it as a sonic barrier for your group, essentially, except yourself. So it's basically a sonic barrier for your group. Threatening Scream is your AoE taunt. So you get that as well. That's pretty mandatory, I would say. It's the only real talent here in these that are mandatory. Warbringer can be useful as well. Force Charge enables your next vicious throw to be used against a target with any percentage of health, and it lasts for 15 seconds. Can be useful if we really need to generate threat, but saying that, for flashpoints, I prefer Seething Hatred. So it's going to be really, this is mandatory, and then a choice between Strangulate, Emboldening Scream, or Warbringer for an operation, or Seething Hatred if you're doing a flashpoint, okay? Force Charge, Enrage, Saber Throw reduced by 100%. So it's useful when you're going from trash to trash. You don't have to go fast then, because you're always going to have Enrage available, you're always going to have Saber Throw, and you're always going to have Force Charge available when you go to the next combat. Heroic, the only one, again, mandatory, Intimidating Presence. Okay, Force Charge finishes the cooldown on your Disruption, which is your interrupt. Not the important part, okay? Saber Reflect lasts 2 seconds longer. Again, we talked about the importance of Saber Reflect. And while Form is active, it generates a high amount of threat on all engaged enemies within 30 meters when activated. This is very good for threat, okay? This is one of your... Saber Reflect becomes one of your best threat abilities, especially in AoE situations. If you think about Hammer Station, if you think about what that pool where it's the 2 elites, it's the 2 elite droids and like the 2 strong droids in Hammer Station, that is crying out for Saber Reflect, because those droids do ranged attacks. So what you want to do is pull those droids, hit your Saber Reflect. It's going to give massive threat to all enemies within 30 meters. That's quite a long distance. That's range, you know. It's like range. That's quite a big range. 30 meters. So you're going to get your big Saber Reflect off there. And add to the fact that Saber Reflect, you know, does 3 damage. Generates a lot of threat as well. The other one I'd say is through Passion, okay? And just the cooldown Enraged Defense by 30 seconds. Again, Enraged Defense is your heal, so getting more access to that heal is pretty useful as well. Okay. In terms of gearing, this is called, the Guardian is called Defense. Defense is the key here. Defense is the key stat. You can see the ridiculous amount of defense that you run. 2000, we got nearly 2.4k, around about sort of 2.5, 2.6k. You want to kind of stop going into defense. Stop augmenting for it as well, I would suggest. So when you get enough gear to get around sort of over 2.5k, I'm at 2.4, near enough k defense, so we still got a little bit to go. The diminishing returns isn't worth it. Look at every single piece of gear here, okay? Everything has defense in it. Okay, everything's defense, 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 apart from that relic there, which is a DPS one. So every piece of tank gear has defense in it. So in terms of augmenting, I'm augmenting shield for me because my absorb a 911 is, you know, it's a little bit, my gear I should point out is PvP with the odd sort of 220 and 216 mods and enhancements. Okay, I've got the 6-piece, getting the 6-piece. Very, very important. Crushing Blow or Guardian Slash increases your damage reduction by 2% for 4 seconds. Force Scream, Blade Storm reduces the cooldown of our Taunt and our Threatening Scream. So again, it will reduce our AoE and our single target taunt by 2 seconds per activation. It's pretty nice. And we increase the duration of Blade Turning by 3 seconds and the duration of Invincible by 5 seconds. Very, very important there. You're invincible. 40% less damage for an extra 5 seconds. Blades Turning is when you get your, you pop up your Saber Ward. Okay, Blade Turning, you see there. What was the icon again? Increases your range defense by 100%. It doesn't, I don't know where the icon's gone. Maybe it's in here. Juggernaut. Blade Turning, there it is. The first 2 seconds of Saber Ward grant 100% melee and range defense. Okay, so when you pop your Saber Ward, you get Blade Turning. So Blade Turning lasting an extra few seconds, it's 100% defense chance. That's all melee and ranged abilities. You know, you're blocking for an extra 3 seconds. Pretty useful, okay? Invincible, reducing it, I said Immortal and Invincible. Same thing, really. Same thing, Immortal, Invincible. Invincible reduces damage taken by 40%, an extra 5 seconds of 40% less damage. That is very, very handy. In terms of gearing, your priority obviously is defense. Your next priority is shield. I don't have enough shield. I didn't really have a choice when I was gearing because this is basically just shit my Vanguard doesn't want with PvP armorings. That's basically it. So yeah, I've got 881. What I've been doing is I won that. If you join me on the live stream that I did, you'll see I won the earpiece and I won the 224 belt from EVHM. I did it as a DPS, EVHM, but yeah, I won them, put them into the tank. So I went for shield, with my 216 piece as well, and this is a 208 absorb piece. I might ditch that absorb piece and go for a 216 shield piece, just to get my shield up. Because you want around, you know, around sort of about 1,000 shield minimum, around sort of 12, 1300. And what I've been doing is augmenting shield here. I'll show you the augment in there. There is shield power going in there. You don't really need to augment defense hugely because every single piece of gear has defense. Defense is like power, it's everywhere. So you're going to hit diminishing returns. We'll talk about relics for a second. The only real mandatory tanking relic is the reactive warding one, okay? Grants you an absorb shield that absorbs a small amount of damage for 6 seconds, okay? The other relic really is up to you. You could take the other tanky ones. Some give you extra absorb, some give you extra defense, but it's never really hugely worth it. The only one they do is the healer one can be useful. Bear in mind your enraged defense does give you a small heal, and the one that gives you a little hot on top of that Healing yourself will give you a little bit of a halt. I took the DPS one. There's no real harm in taking it. Ignore that accuracy augment because that's just for the DPS. You can really choose because you taking the defense one. Not really, because again, adding extra defense, you're going to be well past the diminishing return point, and it's not really going to be a huge benefit. But taking a healer or a DPS one, this is a DPS one, okay? So it's going to... Healing an ally performing damage attack grants us power. It's only a 208 one. But yeah, that one there, again, just gives you an absorb shield, which is going to absorb a small amount of damage. Bear in mind when this absorb shield is up, don't use Scream, because they don't really stack. So just make sure that you spread out the absorb shields there. So what is our rotation? Got our 6-piece set bonus. I've still got the odd defense aug in here. But when we hit sort of above 2.5k defense, we kind of don't want to focus on it here. Right, rotation wise, and ignore this stim. I was doing EV earlier with Vengeance spec, which we'll cover later on. We did Vengeance, so that's why we got the DPS stim. You want the tank stim, which gives you even more defense, really, and more endurance as well. In terms of mods, B mods and A mods are alright. I mean, I've got they're mostly unlettered because it's basically stuff the Vanguard didn't want. That's really the thing with these. Most of these are... Doesn't want me to mouse over that. That's a B mod. It's got a lot of endurance. And again, that enhancement is a unlettered. It's just stuff the Vanguard didn't need, basically. That's all it is. But yeah, taking extra endurance over extra defense can be viable. You know, it can be viable. You don't have to stick with the set stuff. I did get that 224 armoring in there because, again, I'm quite short on armor rating because I've got two... That's a 220 and that's a 216, but the pants, the chest, and the gloves are all 204. So I do lose that a little bit in damage reduction. So we'll get to our rotation. Okay, we're going to talk about Saber Throw. Jesus Christ. The bane of your life, fucking Saber Throw. Do not use this as your opener, okay? Unless the fight kind of demands it, like you're fighting Tyrants or something like that, you know, he's up on a platform. Other than that, no. Saber Throw is a no-no. The problem with Saber Throw is that if you look at Saber Throw now, it no longer has a minimum range requirement. Okay, the problem with Saber Throw is it does not generate enough threat. So the mistake a lot of people make, Saber Throw, charge, Crushing Blow, okay? That tends to be a single target. Crushing Blow is one of your best threat generating abilities, okay? The problem with that is it's the third global cooldown when we've charged. We're delaying our rotation. That's that, leap, that. It's too slow. It's too slow. We've got DPS here that are already in. Bear in mind, as soon as you throw that saber, your marauders are leaping in. Your sorcerers are put up there. You know, they're putting out. They're beginning to cast their what's it called? Thundering Blast. Beginning to cast that. Before you hit your Crushing Blow, marauders are going to be up. They're going to have their dots up and they're going to have their Annihilate off. And, you know, the Thundering Blast auto crit is coming in. We've got to think of that before we hit that. So we're likely to lose threat. What we want to do is we control the pool as a tank. So we want to enrage, charge, Crushing Blow. See, second global cooldown. The second global cooldown is our Crushing Blow. Okay. Bear in mind there are three basic rules for tanking, okay? Three rules that you gotta remember. Number one, threat, okay? That's your most important. In the first phase of our rotation is going to be threat. Generate as much threat as possible in as short a time as possible. So, we wanna enrage that, hit off that, get a back slap across, get off our Aegeus Assault, and then we want to do things like Saber Reflect is an option if they're getting hit by ranged abilities. Then you want to be hitting your Ravage, because you can see here the stack. Okay, you're gonna get that little stacks, extra defense. Okay, 33% defense chance is pretty nice. We've also got the what was it called? What was that buff called? Consuming power, shield absorption increased as well as a GS assault. Okay, then we want to get buffs up, and then we want to get our kind of sort of mid rotation. Okay, our general go-to in our mid rotation is retaliation. Tends to be retaliation, force scream are the two things that you're going to be pressing most often for your mitigation. Okay, rule number 2 of the tank is position. Okay, we get threat on the boss, then we want to position him. Do we need to position him away from the raid? Do we need to face him this way? Do we need to take him to a certain point? You know, like again, Foreman Rock Crusher, you want to tank him. If you're the only tank, you want to tank him against the force field where the ad spawns, so you can get aggro on the ads easily enough. Again, fights like Garge, for example. Not Garge. Yeah, Garge. You want to face him away from the group because he does a big cleave, so he doesn't hit the melee. So fights like the Rancor and the War Chief in Legacy of the Rakata, you want to take the Rancor away and take him into a corner because he does a big knockback and a big giant cleave. So position, threat, position, mitigation. They're the 3 things, okay? 3 things. We get our threat. Make sure we got threat on the boss. Our threat rotation is make sure we enrage to generate 6 rage. Get in there with charge. Get your crushing blow off. And make sure you get your smash off as well. That generates a decent amount of threat. Then position the boss. Once we position the boss, we can then ravage. Okay, we can use things like Saber Reflect as well for those kinds of things. So charge. I forgot to put Enrage up there. Crushing blow. Make sure you use retaliation whenever it's available. Get your ravage off whenever we're in position. A GS assault. This and then this, and then we just want to keep these debuffs up. Use retaliation whenever it becomes available. Press your basic attack or press vicious slash whenever we need to dump threat. Keep a GS assault on cooldown. I'm not getting many stacks of this, to be honest, and then just keep this off, and then just keep ravage on cooldown, basically. Things like that. Most of the your go-to is going to be retaliation. Very difficult to demonstrate this on a dummy. Make sure you get your vicious slash off, because again the trauma one is not huge, but I'm going to keep these kind of things up. Make sure we keep our defense stacked up. Trauma to prevent healing. Yeah, smash off, there's nothing else to press. Should mention that after you generate your threat, and you can see here we're just keeping these buffs, and keep those 3 debuffs. Unsteady and what was the other one? I forget what the other one was called. Unsteady and impaired, okay? Just decreases their damage. Get unsteady on as well. I took us out of combat there. Unsteady, impaired, and trauma you get from your vicious slash. Vicious slash is just a rage dump, really. If you get too much rage, if you don't have a lot of rage, just use assault, basically. Backhand we use during our threat. Okay, so we leap in. Forgot to press enrage again. Get that off. Use that there. That was a bit weird. And then ravage. So we just want to keep a GS assault, crushing blow. Have you ever decided to use that? Okay. A GS assault, crushing blow. Add them on cooldown. Okay, that's basically it. We should get a lot more retaliations in the boss fight. That's the only thing that we're really messing up on the dummy. Nothing to press, put that debuff on the target. Get a ravage out there. Just to get our extra defense as well. Ran out of rage there. Get a Scream off, get one of them off, get a Crushing Blow out. Again, our rage generation is very difficult to demonstrate. The problem with a dummy is it doesn't attack back. Because bear in mind, you generate rage while getting attacked. Okay, in your Suresu form. Abilities generate less rage and damage dealt, but we do generate rage while being attacked. Okay. In our Suresu form. So, and we also will generate rage from this as well, Deadly Reprisal. There, so it's very difficult to demonstrate the tank rotation on the targeting dummy, but your basic mitigation is Aegis Assault, Retaliation, Force Scream, Crushing Blow you want to keep on the target. Bear in mind for AoE, you want to use Aegis Assault before Crushing Blow, because Crushing Blow becomes an AoE. So your AoE rotation looks something like this: Enrage, Leap In, Smash first, Aegis Assault, then Crushing Blow because it defaults to targets. Then you probably want to pop up a Saber Reflect and then AoE Taunt. Okay, that's what you probably want to do. Get a Saber Reflect up if you're doing ranged, and then get an AoE Taunt off just to make sure. Bear in mind you get Sonic Wall as well. You can see here the droid there was protected by it. The droid had the little Sonic Wall on it there, the Sonic barrier it had up on it there. That was quite funny. In terms of your defensive abilities, generally our go-to tends to be Enraged Defense. It's got a short cooldown, 1 minute and 30 when we get below 70% health. Our best one tends to be Invincible, okay, all damage taken by 40%, followed by Saber Ward. Okay, Saber Ward, Invincible generally is a bit better than Saber Ward. If you're fighting against melee attackers, then Saber Ward again with Blades Turning with the 6p set bonus generally is more powerful. But if you're fighting against force or tech attackers, then Invincible is the go-to. So you got to look at what you're fighting against. Endure Pain is your shit button. Enraged Defense will keep you health. Mad Dash can be useful because it is going to give you your range, your defense chance is going to increase by 100%. However, bear in mind that it is going to take you forward a bit, okay? So, you don't want to do this and run into the raid and then a boss comes with you and cleaves the entire raid, okay? Sometimes it's not worth using Mad Dash, to be honest with you. It's just not worth it in that sense. But anyway, that is it. You've got your Intercede as well, which leaps to a friendly target, which is quite nice. Useful in fights like Soa, where, you know, he goes immune and you want to get back to the platform. Fights like that. Fights like the first boss in the Zerka Corporate Labs is where the water gets electrified. You can get out there. Quite useful. Mad Dash is also there as well if you want to get out of shit quickly. But that's basically it for your Immortal. I said Madness there, not said Madness. Your Immortal Juggernaut. It's quite an interesting tank spec. The one thing it does lack is range and mobility. Okay, it does lack a little bit. You can use your Saber Throw. It does have no range requirements. If you ever need rage and this is on cooldown, you can toss it, and these two are on cooldown. You can toss it a Saber Throw. I'm not saying don't ever use it, but don't use it as your opener. Okay, unless you have to, because using rage, use this, get a backhand out, that's a lot of threat there, and then get into your abilities like that. I mean, that's shouldn't lose threat. If you lose threat, you can always taunt, bear in mind, you know, you can always throw a taunt in there as well, just to make sure, you know, maybe throw a taunt in after backhand, just before you start channeling Ravage. But you always want to make sure you get the boss positioned before you use Ravage, because we want the 3 stacks of the what is it called again? The defensive slashes. Okay, we want the 3 stacks of that, of our defense chance. We don't want to be clipping this. Okay, make sure if the boss is going to do a knockback, again, make sure that we either take the knockback, just make sure those kinds of things. That kind of thing comes with experience. When you're tanking, but that is the basics of it. That is the very basics of this class. It's quite it does struggle in certain areas. In certain areas, it is pretty decent. When you can just stand still and hit something. If you're tanking Cartel Warlords, you're on 2 chuck. Okay, the Vanguard and the Shadow, whoever you're tanking the Vanguard or Shadow, they're kiting Sunder. You do not want to kite Sunder in this spec, because basically you can kind of backhand him, you can saber throw him, and that's it. I would maybe take this Warbringer at least, so you can charge to him, run away, charge to him, mad dash through him, because again he does melee attacks. But you do not want to be kiting Sunder, really, as a Juggernaut. Leave that to the Vanguards, leave that to the Shadows. Don't go for don't go for Sunder as a Juggernaut. But anyway, that is all for this video. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.